They sold out stadiums. They lived like gods. Millions worshiped them. But behind the leather jackets, the screaming fans, and the platinum records, these rock legends were living double lives. Secret relationships, hidden traumas, fake personas. What you saw on stage, that was just the performance. Today, we're exposing the shocking truth about 10 rock icons who weren't who you thought they were. From Freddie Mercury's hidden love to Axl Rose's buried childhood. These are the double lives that changed rock history forever. 1. Freddie Mercury. Live Aid. 1,985, 72,000 people at Wembley Stadium. 2 billion watching worldwide. And there was Freddie Mercury commanding the stage like a god. The mustached maestro in his iconic yellow jacket, hitting notes that defied human capability. But behind that confident rock deity was a man living 2 completely different lives. Born Farik Bulzara in Zanzibar, Freddie reinvented himself from day one. The shy Parsi boy became rock's most flamboyant frontman. On stage, he wore leotards, broke every masculinity rule, and owned every moment. But offstage, he was timid, soft-spoken, and deeply private. While bandmates Roger and Brian shared their family lives openly, Freddie locked everything away. His biggest secret? His sexuality. In the 70s and 80s, being gay in rock meant career death. So Freddie hid. For 7 years, he was with Mary Austin. He proposed to her, called her his soulmate, and he meant it. She was his anchor. But she wasn't his whole truth. By the late 70s, Freddie explored his real identity, but only in private. Gay clubs in disguise, leather outfits, the underground scene. In public, always ambiguous. Then came Jim Hutton, his long-term partner, hidden at Garden Lodge Mansion. No interviews mentioned him, no photos allowed. By 1986, tabloids noticed his gaunt appearance. AIDS rumors spread. Rock Hudson had just died from it. But Freddie denied everything until November 23, 1991, when he finally confirmed his diagnosis. 24 hours later, he was dead at 452 AXL Rose, November 1987, Whiskey A Go-Go, Los Angeles. A skinny redhead storms off stage mid-set, screaming at his band. Returns 10 minutes later, like nothing happened. 3 songs later, does it again. This was Axl Rose, 5-octave vocal range, temper of a cornered animal. But behind the riots and meltdowns was a man carrying trauma so deep it took decades of therapy to unpack. Born William Bruce Rose Jr. in Lafayette, Indiana, 1962, his childhood was hell. Biological father was a convicted criminal who allegedly abused his mother. At 2, parents separated. His mother remarried Stephen Bailey, and Axl believed Bailey was his real father. Raised strict Pentecostal church 8 times a week. No dancing, no rock music, but worse happened behind closed doors. Axl later revealed childhood sexual abuse, possibly by his stepfather. He recovered repressed memories and therapy claims of molestation at age 2 by his biological father. True or not, one thing's clear, his childhood shattered him. Discovering his real name as a teenager felt like betrayal. He fled to LA, angry, homeless, hungry, slept on floors, stole food. When Guns N' Roses exploded with appetite for destruction, Axl had a platform. But he used it for war. He fought everyone, showed up hours late to concerts, jumped into crowds to attack fans. St. Louis, 1991, he triggered a full riot. People called him a diva, a lunatic. But Axl wasn't just difficult, he was traumatized. Severe anxiety, mood swings, manic depression. He underwent intense therapy past life regression, primal scream therapy. His marriage to Erin Everly was toxic, controlling, jealous, allegedly abusive, divorced in less than a year. As the band fell apart, Axl became reclusive. By the late 90s, he was the only original member left, holed up in his Malibu mansion working on Chinese democracy for 14 years. 3. David Bowie. January 1972, Top of the Pops, London. A man with orange hair, quilted jumpsuit, and platform boots straddles his guitarist, singing about Ziggy Stardust. Britain was horrified. Teenagers were hypnotized. David Bowie was just getting started. 5 decades of reinvention, never letting the world pin him down. But behind the costumes was a man hiding who he really was. Born David Robert Jones in Brixton, 1947, childhood marked by instability. Mother, emotionally distant, possibly mentally ill. Half-brother Terry, diagnosed with schizophrenia, spent life in institutions. David adored Terry and feared he'd inherited the same madness. That fear haunted him forever as a teenager. David threw himself into music and art, changed his name to Bowie to avoid confusion with Davy Jones of the Monkees. Nothing stuck until Ziggy Stardust, an androgynous alien rock star. Theater, art, revolution? But Ziggy wasn't just a character, Ziggy was a shield. In 1972, Bowie declared, "I'm gay and always have been." The world exploded, but the truth was more complicated. He was bisexual, though even that felt limiting. He married Angela Barnett in 1970, open marriage. Affairs, drugs, chaos, both slept with the same people. It was the 70s. By mid-70s, Bowie was in LA, deep into cocaine addiction. Skeletal, paranoid, obsessed with the occult, claimed to see UFOs. Barely 8. Friends feared he'd end up like Terry, so Bowie reinvented himself. Moved to Berlin in 1976, quit cocaine, recorded Low Heroes. Lodger became reclusive, just trying to survive. But even then, the double life continued. By 1983, he called his bisexuality the biggest mistake I ever made, claiming it was a publicity stunt. Was he lying then or lying now? For Jim Morrison, Miami, March 1st, 1969, Dinner Key Auditorium. 10,000 fans in a space for 7. Jim Morrison stumbled on stage drunk, shirtless, incoherent, taunted the crowd, simulated oral sex on guitarist Robbie Krieger, allegedly exposed himself. Chaos erupted. Arrests followed. But this wasn't a meltdown. This was a poet, suffocating under his own mythology. Born 1943 to a strict military family, father was a Navy admiral, one of the most disciplined men alive. Jim grew up on bases, moving constantly, never settling. He was a loner, bookish, obsessed with poetry and philosophy. Read Nietzsche, Rambo, Blake, interested in shamanism, death, transcendence. Wanted to be a poet, a filmmaker, not a rock star. But in 1965, Jim met keyboardist Ray Manzarek on Venice Beach. Jim recited poetry. Ray heard a song. Within months, The Doors were born. Named after Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception. Jim wasn't just a singer, he was a shaman. But the persona came at a cost. On stage, Jim was the Lizard King. Dark, sexual, dangerous. Offstage, he was quiet, shy, almost fragile. Sat in corners at parties reading. Avoided eye contact. Hated celebrity. Once said, "I'm more interested in unexplored regions of the mind." But the world didn't want a poet. They wanted a rock god. So Jim started drinking heavily. By 1969, a bottle of whiskey daily. Showed up to concerts, unable to stand. Forgot lyrics, berated audiences, stumbled off stage. Bandmates were furious but couldn't control him. Then there was Pamela Courson, his soulmate, his enabler. Met in 1965, passionate, toxic, codependent. They fought constantly, broke up dozens of times. But Jim always came back. By 1971, Jim was done. Bloated, bearded, exhausted. Convicted in the Miami trial, facing jail, moved to Paris with Pamela, hoping to become a poet again. For months, Jim Morrison wasn't Jim Morrison anymore. He was just Jim. But July 3rd, 1971, Pamela found him dead in their bathtub. He was 27. Official cause: heart failure. No autopsy. Rumors swirled. Heroin overdose. Accident. Suicide. Nobody knows. 5. Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons wants you to believe he slept with over 5,000 women. Said it in interviews, wrote it in books, bragged on TV. He's the demon, fire-breathing, blood-spitting, tongue-wagging embodiment of rock excess. Ultimate ladies' man. But here's the twist. Gene Simmons is also one of the most disciplined, financially conservative, family-oriented men in rock. The double life, it's his greatest performance. Born Kayumwitz in Haifa, Israel, 1949, his mother, Florence, survived Nazi concentration camps. They immigrated to New York when Gene was 8. Florence worked multiple jobs. Gene watched her struggle and made a vow. He'd never be poor again. That vow shaped everything. While other rock stars burned through millions on drugs and mansions, Gene invested in real estate, franchises, licensing deals. He trademarked everything: Kiss coffins, Kiss condoms, Kiss credit cards. He turned KISS into a billion-dollar brand. But none of that fit the rock star image, so Gene created the demon. On stage, he was sex and violence. Interviews, all about conquest. He kept Polaroids of every woman he slept with, numbered, dated, cataloged. But here's what he didn't talk about. His 28-year relationship with Shannon Tweed. Gene met Shannon in 1983. Canadian Playboy model, actress. They had 2 children, together Nick and Sophie. But Gene refused to marry her for decades. Why control? He wanted the Playboy image intact. Shannon endured years of humiliation Gene's public affairs, his bragging, his refusal to commit. Finally, in 2011, they married. Gene was 62 because he realized Shannon was the only real thing in his manufactured life. She knew him before Kiss, loved him despite the demon. But even after marriage, Gene maintained the double life. Interviews still focused on his conquests. Reality shows portrayed him as the tough, unromantic businessman. But at home, Gene was devoted. Cooked dinner, helped with homework, protected his family fiercely. 6. Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler's scarves, screams, lips that launched 1,000 comparisons. America's rock royalty, the demon of screamin', frontman of Aerosmith for over 5 decades. On stage, pure chaos, strutting, wailing, living the rock and roll dream. But behind that larger-than-life persona was a man with secrets that would shock even his most devoted fans. Born Steven Victor Tallarico in Yonkers, New York, 1948. Grew up in a musical family. Father was a classical pianist. Steven had talent from birth, but he also had demons. By his teens, he was already experimenting with drugs. By the 70s, Aerosmith was massive, and Steven's addictions were out of control. But the drugs weren't his darkest secret. In 1975, when Steven was 27, he began a relationship with 16-year-old Julia Holcomb. He became her legal guardian so she could live with him. Let that sink in. A 27-year-old rock star became the legal guardian of a teenage girl he was dating. Julia got pregnant. Steven pressured her to have an abortion. Years later, Julia spoke out about the trauma and manipulation. Steven barely acknowledged it. In his autobiography, he glossed over Julia with euphemisms and rock star bravado. The double life continued. Then there's Liv Tyler, Steven's daughter, with model Bebe Buell. But here's the twist. Liv didn't know Steven was her father until she was 8 years old. Bebe told Liv that Todd Rundgren was her dad to protect her from Steven's chaotic lifestyle. When Liv finally met Steven, she noticed they looked identical. The truth came out. Steven had been absent for years. Despite this, Steven and Liv eventually built a relationship. She forgave him, but the damage was done. Steven also fathered another daughter, Mia. With Serinda Fox, Mia has been open about her troubled relationship with her father, his absences, his addictions, the pain of growing up as Steven Tyler's daughter without really having him. In the 80s and 90s, Steven's drug addiction nearly destroyed Aerosmith. Cocaine, heroin, he did it all. The band staged an intervention. He went to rehab multiple times. Got clean, relapsed, got clean again. 7. Mick Jagger. The lips, the strut, the voice that defined rock rebellion for 6 decades. On stage, he's pure cahosexual, dangerous, untouchable, the bad boy of rock and roll. But offstage, Mick Jagger is one of the shrewdest, most calculated businessmen in music history. The double life. It's made him $500 million. Born Michael Philip Jagger in Dartford, England, 1943. Father was a teacher, mother a hairdresser. Mick was smart, attended the London School of Economics before dropping out from music. Even then, he was strategic. When the Rolling Stones formed in 1962, Mick crafted the bad boy image deliberately. The Beatles were clean-cut and safe. The Stones would be dirty and dangerous. Mick played it perfectly. Arrested for drug possession, scandalous relationships, the Altamont disaster. Every controversy boosted album sales. But behind the scenes, Mick was all business. While Keith Richards spiraled into heroin addiction, Mick stayed relatively clean. He negotiated contracts, managed finances, and built the Stones into a touring juggernaut. Today, their tours gross hundreds of millions. That's not luck, that's Mick. Then there's his personal life. Mick has 8 children with 5 different women. Married twice, countless affairs. Relationships with Marianne Faithfull, Bianca Jagger, Jerry Hall, R.E.N. Scott, each one played out in tabloids. But here's the secret. Mick compartmentalized everything. Jerry Hall endured 23 years with Mick, thinking they were married. Turns out, their Bali ceremony wasn't legally binding. When Jerry discovered Mick's affair with Brazilian model Luciana Gimenez, who had his child, she tried to divorce him. Mixed lawyers argued there was no marriage to dissolve. Jerry got a settlement, but not the wife's share. Mick also had a secret long-term affair with Carla Bruni, who later became France's first lady when it ended. Carla wrote a song calling him disgusting. Despite the chaos, Mick maintained political connections. He's been knighted, hobnobbed with presidents, and carefully managed his public image. The rock rebel. That's just branding. 8. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. The madman bit the head off a bat on stage, snorted ants. Pissed on the Alamo? For 40 years, Ozzy has been rock's ultimate wild man. But here's the shocking truth. Offstage, Ozzy is one of the most vulnerable, family-oriented, and emotionally fragile men in music. The double life. It saved him and nearly destroyed him. Born John Michael Osborne in Birmingham, England, 1948. Working-class family, 6 siblings, poverty everywhere. Dyslexic, bullied, struggled in school. Turned to petty crime burglary, mostly. Ended up in jail at 17. Music was his only escape. Black Sabbath formed in 1968. Heavy, dark, ominous, Ozzy's voice was haunting. But the band's success came with the prize drugs, alcohol, chaos. By the late 70s, Ozzy was consuming 4 bottles of cognac a day. He was fired from Sabbath in 1979 for being too messed up. Think about that, fired from Black Sabbath for being too wild. His solo career took off with the help of Sharon Arden, who became his manager and later his wife. Sharon saved Ozzy's life. She got him into rehab multiple times, managed his career, and turned him into a brand. But even Sharon couldn't control the madness. The bat incident. 1982, Des Moines, Iowa. A fan threw a dead bat on stage. Ozzy thought it was rubber, bit its head off. Realized it was real when blood filled his mouth. Had to get rabies shots. The story became legend-proof of Ozzy's insanity. But here's what people don't see. At home, Ozzy is soft, emotional, cries easily. He adores his children, Amy Kelly, Jack. When the Osbournes reality show aired in 2002, the world saw the real Ozzy, confused, loving, struggling with addiction. But trying, Ozzy also battles severe depression and anxiety. He's attempted suicide multiple times. In 1989, high on drugs and alcohol, he tried to strangle Sharon. She called the police. Ozzy was arrested, went to rehab again. The incident nearly destroyed their marriage. 9. Robert Plant. Robert Plant, the voice of Led Zeppelin. Long blonde hair, flowing bare chest gleaming, wailing like a banshee. For millions, Robert Plant is rock's ultimate frontman. But behind that epic persona was a man haunted by tragedy, loss, and secrets he's never fully revealed. Born Robert Anthony Plant in West Bromwich, England, 1948, working-class kid, obsessed with blues. Joined local bands, barely scraping by. Then, in 1968, Jimmy Page invited him to audition for the New York. Robert nailed it. Led Zeppelin was born. Zeppelin's success was immediate and massive. Whole Lotta Love, Stairway to Heaven, Kashmir Roberts' voice defined a generation. On stage, he was untouchable. But offstage, he was quiet, almost reclusive. Unlike bandmates who indulged in groupies and chaos, Robert was more introspective. Then came the tragedies. In 1975, Robert and his wife Maureen were in a serious car accident in Greece. Maureen was critically injured. Robert suffered broken bones. While recovering, he wrote Achilles' Last Stand, 10 minutes of pain and power. But worse was coming. In 1977, while Zeppelin toured the US, Robert received a call. His 5-year-old son, Carrick, had died suddenly from a stomach virus. Robert was devastated. He flew home immediately. The tour was canceled. Robert blamed himself. He'd been on the road, chasing fame while his son was dying. The guilt consumed him. Jimmy Page later said Robert was never the same after Carrick's death. The golden god had fallen. Zeppelin continued, but the magic was fading. In 1980, drummer John Bonham died from alcohol poisoning. Zeppelin disbanded. Robert retreated, avoiding the spotlight for years. But here's the double life. Robert also had a spiritual, mystical side the world rarely saw. He studied Eastern philosophy, Welsh mythology, mysticism. He visited sacred sites, meditated, searched for meaning. Friends said he was on a quest to understand loss and transcendence. In the decades since, Robert has refused to fully reunite Led Zeppelin. He's turned down millions. Why? Because he doesn't want to be Robert Plant, the golden god, anymore. He wants to be Robert Plant, the man who survived tragedy and found peace. 10. Rod Stewart. The raspy voice, the spiky blonde hair, the legend of 1,000 conquests. For 50 years, Rod has been rock's ultimate ladies' man. Do you think I'm sexy? It wasn't just a song, it was a lifestyle. But behind that playboy image is a man with a shockingly traditional family life, hidden health battles, and financial secrets that contradict everything his public persona represents. Born Roderick David Stewart in London, 1945. Working-class Scottish family, started as a footballer before music took over. Joined the Faces, then went solo. By the 70s, Rod was a superstar. Maggie May, Tonight's the Night. Platinum albums, sold out arenas, but his reputation was built on sex. Stories of groupies, models, actresses' romantic life was tabloid gold. He's been married 3 times and has 8 children with 5 different women. Alana Stewart, Rachel Hunter, Penny Lancaster's relationship played out publicly. But here's the double life, despite the playboy image. Rod is actually a devoted father and homebody. He talks to his kids daily. He's present at school events, birthday parties, family dinners. Friends say Rod's happiest at home, not on yachts with models. Then there's his health. In 2000, Rod was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. He kept it secret for months, terrified it would end his career. Surgery was successful, but Rod lived in fear of recurrence. He still gets annual checkups. Still worries. In 2019, Rod revealed he'd secretly battled prostate cancer for 3 years. Again, he'd hidden it from the public. Why? Because Rod Stewart, the legend, can't be vulnerable. Vulnerability destroys the brand. Financially, Rod's double life is just as stark. He's worth an estimated $300 million, but he's notoriously cheap. Friends joke about his frugality. He negotiates relentlessly, monitors expenses obsessively. The rock star who should be throwing money around, he's actually a penny dash pincher. Rod also has a secret passion model trains. He spent decades building an elaborate model railway in his home. It's meticulous, detailed, obsessive. Interviews rarely mention it because it doesn't fit the image. At 79, Rod still tours, still plays the character, but the real Rod Stewart is a careful, cautious man who built a persona to survive. The double life isn't about deception, it's about protection. Because once the world sees the real you, they can hurt you. And Rod learned that lesson a long time ago. Even the greatest legends in rock history were much more than the people we saw on stage. Behind the masks, the pain, and the secret lives were real people. If you want to see the continuation of these dark and compelling stories, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Follow us for more.